Hi, what's up? My name is Tom. Nice to meet you. This time I am going to comment on the reflection section, the term on the follow-up and control of instructions, a term widely used in consulting, but that could well be applied on a day-to-day basis. It is generally used when it is necessary to implement a new process or procedure, or when a fault is detected that must be corrected. It consists of validating what a person says to a third party, and what this third party understands and does, and, in some cases, it occurs with different dynamics, that is, when a group of people is informed. For the second case, it will depend on the number of people involved, and the type of leadership applied. The first point to comment is communication. The issue of communication is complex, as the saying goes, between what you want to say, what you really say, what is expected to be heard, what is heard, and what is finally understood, there are many scenarios for noise to be generated in the message. And we also know that we can communicate verbally and non-verbally. A body position, an increase in the speed of words, or a change in the tone of voice, for example, can even be a cause of noise. Harvard psychologist Amy Cuddy conducted a study on what are the first impressions that are generated in a first meeting between two people, and for several years, she dedicated herself to conducting interviews. She managed to reach the conclusion in her study that people in a first meeting, they need to determine if the other person is respectable, that is, if they have or handle enough information about what they want to ask, and if the other person is trustworthy. You can determine both elements in this way. From the logical side of the brain, it begins to look for elements of judgment to determine if the person is interested or not, if they can help us solve a situation or not, while the emotional side also begins to unconsciously analyze its database, if there is any clue or characteristic that determines this person attracts or generates empathy, or, on the contrary, generates some rejection. I would like to delve a little more into this topic. Do you remember the movie Intensely? Where each part of the brain, the logical, the emotional, and the reptilian, acted differently depending on a stimulus. Well, the brain acts as it is. In some cases they compete for the answer. A typical case is the person who falls in love. The one who falls in love does not see the flaws in the couple, and if he or she realizes it, he or she justifies it. That is why they say that love is blind, because you only want to be connected with the emotional. To see in this case would mean to evaluate, and the energy placed in the emotional side does not calculate or measure consequences. Learn that. Another point to evaluate, regarding the term of follow-up and control of instructions. It corresponds to the interpretation of the message. Many times you do not know the state or situation of another person, and you would fall into the indiscretion of sending a wrong message without meaning to, and that is, that we are so different, and we have to live certain situations in different stages in parallel. It is very likely that the people who interacts with each other are dealing with completely different situations at the same time. A simple example, a person who makes a joke, and thinks it's so funny, but there is another person who listens to it, and thinks it's the worst, and gets upset. A person who offers his or her help, but the other person, far from feeling helped, feels threatened, for the simple fact that he or she does not know him or her. A person who carries out an activity, and he or she believes that he or she is doing it well, but on a real basis he or she is not providing the added value that the company requires. In short, they are all situations that can be generated, and obviously, there are many others that can have an impact on a work environment, or on a day-to-day basis, when a person interacts with his or her environment, so it must be assumed as a process of trial and error for best results. How can you solve these types of situations? The key word is validate. Asking what was understood of the instruction, and following up is essential. It is what guarantees a change in the short and medium term. I am going to analyze a little with examples, what is happening when the instruction monitoring and control tool should be used. I must say that any resemblance to any reality is simple coincidence. I do it for illustrative purposes. Here goes the list. A person who agrees to carry out an activity and does not comply. For example, I'll call you early tomorrow to balance lunch. I finish the report today in the afternoon. I'm just arriving. I will send you the information by mail. A person who usually does an average amount of work from one day to the next decreases in performance. Boss, I have a few reports left to finish this week. Don't hit the sales quota, or excuses are made for being late, etc. A person who suddenly changes his mood, goes from friendly to rude, cooperative to apathetic, a proactive person to be sedentary. All this happens because something is failing internally. When we communicate, as I explained in the first part, there are two components, a logical side that corresponds to interest, and an emotional one that generates commitment. But I must say that this is not a simple procedure, since validating involves asking questions that allow clarifying the fault in the person who performs them. This can generate situations that are perceived as uncomfortable or risky. We are talking about a situation of awareness, about reconciling interests or commitments on the part of those involved. But there are also a set of activities which are carried out for a longer period of time. Such is the case of monthly or annual management controls, represented in a budget. They are more complex processes, and are oriented towards administration, within companies or ventures, in which each area involved has projected activities, objectives, and goals, which are represented financially and statistically. For this, it is necessary to carry manual or electronic controls, in order to be able to evaluate them for shorter periods, and make corrections if necessary. Finally, for all the situations, the specialists believe that in a conflict moment, there are steps to follow that can allow reaching a solution that satisfies the parties involved. As a first point, avoid emotionality, the subjective, the personal. Use objective elements when arguing or telling each part of the story, that is, that can be validated by both parties. Make known what you want to obtain, start a negotiation process, and close. Honor commitments or agreements. Today's topic has ended. I hope you liked it. Soon we'll be adding a new video with another topic related to entrepreneurship. Remember that you can push the bell button to keep you informed for next videos, or like the video. Let me know that my work paid off today. This work is a courtesy of 500 Notes for Ventures. Read it and reinvent yourself. This is a book that will add a great value to your work as an entrepreneur. You can reach your communication skills to a next level, that is called The Power of Selling. It is already available on Amazon Kindle. For more information you can leave a message here. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.